uko kuno apo pano mama wanna get it nice anovura meso anovura nzeve anokaya marigi kama kwetu tikomo wengere totikomo usasarire anogaya mari
kamba kwe uyo anotara mari anogaya mari garai mamunzwa pane nyaya pano zvamunoda kunzwa zvinotaurwa pano madiko kumunzwa mugovane.com kamba kwe vanogaya mari vanotaura mari vanosiya mari kamba kwe vanotaura feya kuti pamberi zvichafamba sei vanomuterere zvikubatsirei mukufamba kwenyu zvikubatsirei mirai ndikudze kuti chokwadi pano chizere kamba kwe vanogaya cash vanopa mafacts vanotaura straight vane evidence vane confidence plus intelligence
entertainment.
Yes, pardon.
Right. 16 July 2022. Sorry, Senator. I just ambushed you there. How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
I'm so sorry about that.
No,
I do that
fine.
sometimes. Yeah.
No, it's okay.
So how are you doing, Senator?
No, I'm doing well. I've got a good story to tell. You are not going to believe what I'm about to tell you.
Yes, what happened?
About a month or so ago, I received a call from one of our citizens. He's based in the diaspora. So he requested me to basically draw water from a rock. I discovered that after I'd committed. And he asked me, he says, I have this challenge. I have tried everything. I have written, there is no response whatsoever. And he says, I think you are the man to assist. And I said, okay, I'll give it my best shot. And after I'd spoken to him, I realized that, why did I commit myself to this? And we pushed. I wrote a letter to the minister concerned. And there was silence for about 3 weeks or so. I pushed and sent my aide to her office and everything. And I think Wednesday or Thursday or so, boom, I get a call from the ministry and things are moving. And by Friday, that was yesterday, everything is done. Friday, or I think yesterday or Thursday or so. Then I call this man there in the diaspora. I tell him this is done. And he was mumbling. He was so disoriented. He couldn't believe it. And
Yeah.
so he says to me, what is your info? I was like, no invoice. I'm just a member of parliament. It's my job to do these things. So I'm very, very excited, Kambakwe, that the promise that no one left behind. In this case, it has been met and met emphatically so. And I know we are facing many problems as a country, but for today, just allow me to celebrate and say this has to be the best government in the world, at least for this man, because he was in such a corner. It needed a government that has a heart, a government that understands, and the government came through for him. And I am humbled because he's not in my constituency. I at least represent Bulawayo. He's from Rusabe. That's my Nikaland. Huh? You go past Harare, Eastern Highlands.
Yeah.
I've never been there. I can tell you off my heart, there are more than 20 members of parliament from Manicaland. But he just thought, you are the guy, you will come through for me. And I was very honored and pleased to do that. And I really want to give a shout out to His Excellency. Your government is doing on this one. This is the minister, by the way, I need to say, the minister of economic development. I think it's industry. Yeah, minister of industry. That's a lady. I'm just trying to get her details quickly here and tell you it's Dr. Wu. And really, I couldn't be more proud. Remember, I've said this before, I'm just an opposition MP who doesn't have much of an influence. And to write to the minister, and the minister respects that, and they pull it out for a citizen who was in a very desperate situation. I am so proud. I'm very, very proud. That's what I thought I needed to share with you.
No, that's fantastic, Senator. And I think everyone needs to know that you do a lot for a lot of people that we don't even talk about here. And many people witness that, yeah.
Yeah, I know there is a lot that happens. Of course, you would know that because like some things that I really can't, because some people they don't know. Some ask for financial assistance, and I don't earn much. So when I fail, I normally come to you, and I'm also grateful because you also have assisted in many instances. I think that's another thing that people don't know. Sometimes they get very angry and say, "Why do I talk to you?" And I'm like, only if they knew that when citizens are stranded and they come to me for money and I don't have that money, I come to you and you are always willing to assist.
Right. So, Senator, I think let's quickly go through today's topic. And this is very, very difficult. It's a difficult topic because it seems like we're bashing, or I am bashing CCC, which is not true. Professor Jonathan Moyo.
Sorry to interrupt. That's the Minister of Industry and Commerce, Dr. Nzenza.
Okay.
So I just thought it's important that we give a shout out, and I'm so humbled and I'm very, very grateful. She gave meaning to no one and no place left behind, and I'm so proud, so honored, so humbled on behalf of this citizen.
Okay, thank you very much. And now let's go to the topic at hand.
Yeah.
Which is what has happened this week in the CCC.
Okay.
And as I said, we're not bashing the CCC. We're trying to unpack the situation. There's massive confusion that has broken out in the CCC regarding the appointment of a shadow cabinet.
Okay.
Firstly, I think it's Dr. Stephen Chan. He was in Zimbabwe last week. And during his visit...
Wait, is it the one from Japan?
I'm not sure which country, but I think it's UK-based.
Okay, the one who's been writing a lot.
Yeah, so he came to visit
on the economic front.
In Zimbabwe, yes.
Okay.
So he came to visit, and during his visit, he said Nelson Chamisa needs to make the West aware of who is going to be doing what in the future government. Okay. So Chamisa responded this week after the meeting by appointing a shadow cabinet. So I'm going to go into whether it's a shadow cabinet or not.
Okay.
And then Dr. Stephen Chan came back and said he's very happy that Chamisa has made the appointment. I don't know if you saw this tweet this afternoon. Where he's saying, I am very happy that...
remember I was at church today. Come back. It was the Holy Sabbath.
All right, so he's happy that Chamisa has done what the West wants him to do. It's written here in front of us. You can see the... I stress the need for the West to know with whom it will be dealing, portfolio by portfolio, in the event of 2023 electoral victory.
Okay.
So the reason why Dr. Chan wants this appointment is because the West cannot deal with people they don't know. They need to know who Chamisa is going to appoint. And in response, Professor Jonathan Moore tweeted this, what is on the screen here, that the puppeteer directs, puppet implements. Dr. Stephen Chan told them publicly here on Twitter that the West wants their structures in parliament, and they oblige within 4 days. Terrible optics. This kind of display of puppetry is unfortunate as it is concerning. So that is the background. And then the CCC this evening has gone on to deny that they appointed a shadow cabinet. First, the presidential spokesman, that is Hopo Chingono. I don't know if you're seeing that on my screen. Because I'm only seeing it on one of my screens. So Nelson Chamisa didn't appoint a shadow cabinet. He only appointed parliamentary spokespeople for the CCC. He could only use the pool of 19 CCC members of parliament. That is why he did not see the likes of Wiwa or Rusty Makam. And then obviously, Young Ostalos, he did answer to this. And let me play the video here.
Can you give us a comment regarding the shadow cabinet?
Thank you very much. It's a clear distortion of the facts. The Citizens Coalition for Change has made appointments for parliamentary deployments for people to speak on parliamentary issues with specific focus areas. That includes finance, that includes labor, that includes youth and other portfolios. As reflected by the existing ministerial positions in our country. We have done this specifically to make sure that we have delegated responsibilities and spokespersons on these peculiar issues in the Zimbabwean parliament. There is no such thing as a cabinet. We have made this very clear if you follow our announcements that we've made in the past. And we
Right, Senator, I want to give you a chance to speak on this. And I want us to keep this very brief.
Okay.
Let's start with Professor Jonathan Moore. Is it true that Chamisa is behaving like a puppet, only responding when issues are raised by the West and not by the general public of Zimbabwe?
Okay. What I'm going to try and do is to try and make you understand this backwards and forth that has been going on between the professor and the Triple C and their champion-in-chief advocate, Nelson Chamisa. You see, I'm happy there's something which you brought online here, I think about a week or two ago, and I think you were talking to Dr. Mteneri from Botswana. You said something, and I said, I'm happy he said this because I could not say it on your behalf. It was not in my place. You said you had over 100 and something subscribers. You used your money and your time and everything to advance the then Alliance cause. And your business was vandalized. That's not the term you used, but that's basically what you meant. It was vandalized. And at least I experienced that because the current one, I can claim some bit of a role that I also played in rebuilding this. And you said you got to a stage where you realized that this is child's play. We are risking and sacrificing a lot of our livelihoods and others' life for something that will not come to anything. It will just remain the opposite or opposition activism. And a lot of people missed that. A lot of people didn't pick it. And I remember talking with somebody and saying, but a lot of people didn't seem to get that. This is exactly what is happening with the prof, by the way. The prof left Zimbabwe under difficult circumstances, if you are to go by the pin on his Twitter account. Under extreme difficult circumstances. I don't think they wanted to kill him, but I was not there. He's the one who was there. I think they wanted to put the fear of God in him. And I think they created a passage deliberately for him so that he goes away because he's a problem. Politically, he's a problem. He can articulate, he can conceptualize things, he can create a narrative, and that narrative can be dominant. So they didn't want him at the time to be around, and he left. And I credit him single-handedly. Single-handedly. He is one person who brought a legitimate crisis in the current government. He didn't stop there. He went as far as writing a book. He wrote a book on behalf of the then MTC Alliance, now Triple C. Now he's sitting there in Kenya when there is advocacy that is being done. His matter is not raised at all. His issue does not come up. They will raise everything else except his issue. You have been in hospital last year. Is it last year or this year? But I think it's last year, over COVID, and you would have known how disempowering it is to be lying in a bed or even walking around a small place. The guy is in exile. He's in exile. He put everything in 2018, hoping that there'll be a new government. He will come back home, which didn't happen. He fought hard and heavy after that. And it's clear to him, as it's clear to everyone else, that it's not going to happen in 2023. So he is frustrated. And I can say this, and our listeners just have to be ready, because what I'm about to tell you, a lot of people are not ready for it. Right now in Zimbabwe, there are two politicians that when they tell you something, you can take their word, take it to the bank and cash it, and that check will not bounce. When His Excellency tells you something political, go and catch it, it will happen. The next person who, when they tell you something, you can take it because they mean it, they are genuine, they are not going to change, they are not going to mock you, they are not going to humiliate you or anything about it. That's Dr. Kope. If it fails, it's because she didn't have capacity to see it through. She got sabotaged and whatsoever here and there. But those are two politicians. When they tell you something, you know they mean it. You know they are not taking you through a garden path. You know they are not playing politics with you. Let me substantiate this, especially with regards to HE, because a lot of people are just going to come up with useless accusations. First of all, he wrote us a letter here after he skipped the country. And a long letter, but he said, I'll be back very soon to lead you to a new Zimbabwe. And he did come back. Secondly, he then took Pollard and he made promises to a group now. I think it's no longer controversial to say that's statehood. In the majority, there are 2-3 other brilliant people, but the rest, you know, that's statehood. I think it's no longer controversial to say that. And he has kept his word, given them dignity, given them vehicles to do whatever they think it's necessary, it needs to be done. But if you are to be honest, I'm hard pressed to see Zimbabweans that are deriving value out of them. No one is deriving value. But he gave them their word and his word, and he's seeing that word through. The final example, look at Senator Timvios and Honorable Chembundu. He takes them there. Chembundu, I think they had contested each other and he had beat the president then. But he's not humiliated. They are treated with such dignity and respect. There is no one somewhere who's murmuring and humiliating them and insulting them. And then turn around and take the situation of Dr. Kope and Honorable Abednego Pepe. And these things that I'm telling you is the professor knows them far better than me, because he has an experience with HE. And now he has an experience with the Triple C crowd. And he looks at all of that. He wants to come back home and is asking himself a question: where would I rather throw my lot with? So if you understand that background, you will understand where the fight is now. Is he realizes, I must go back home, and the next government is going to be formed by the current government after next year's elections. He's clear about that. And then he realizes, look, I really can't stay in exile all of my life, fighting over a cause which does not seem to go anywhere. Hence, he coins a secret society. Why is he coining it as a secret society? He's coining it as a secret society because it's got no constitution. So whatever it's doing is derived from where? There's no constitution. There's no gathering that happens, whatever you want to call it, whether you want to call it a convention, whether you want to call it a congress, whether you want to call it what. So whatever governs this animal, if you want to term it, what is it that governs it? So in terming it a secret society is correct, a bit harsh because those are his friends. But if you are looking at the technical, he is correct. Because what governs this whole thing? What is a point of reference? Where do you go to? And I was looking at the prof and I was saying to myself, the prof is actually helping them. Because tomorrow morning, if somebody wakes up and gather 200 people, 300 people and claim that is the inaugural Congress of CCC, and they constitute leadership and whatsoever, and they go to court, you know who the courts are going to rule with.
Oh, definitely.
so I'm just saying, Kambakwe, if indeed it's true, if my observations are true, that there have been some overtures between the prof and the current administration, I can tell you that's the biggest coup that this administration has done, because demobilizing opposition in the form of Pollard was really nothing. But if you can demobilize Professor Moyo, you have done a great job. And that will be a great loss to the opposition, because I'm saying to you, he single-handedly brought us a legitimate crisis. He's that massive. You can't get a professor of his magnitude and think that he's just a bystander that you can just wake up in the morning and wish away. Mugabe, who's recognized as one of the greatest thinkers, he realized that, and he had to demobilize the professor and bring him back. So my fear is he's going to be brought back. I just hope that this time they don't give him any spokesperson position. They just give him somewhere where he can do, like, for example, what he had, higher education and science development, where he can get down to get his hands dirty, really get things going. And if that he can't get, at least give him water and trees. You know, just get another child to come back home. Nobody needs to live in exile over politics.
Yeah, Senator, I think I hear you. And I know Professor Moyo is amazing in terms of what you just said. And I was lucky enough way back when Mugabe was still in government to spend about an hour or two in an interview with him when they were recruiting, long back, they were recruiting information officers there in the Ministry of Information. And also when he was setting up the information policy of Zimbabwe, you can also remember the maths thing that he did in Zimbabwe. He's way ahead in terms of policy, in terms of world-class thinking. So I think Chamisa and his people, they miss that intelligence of Professor Moyo. But I don't think the problem we have now is on Professor Moyo's side. I think the problem we have is actually on the confusion on the CCC side. They don't understand what Zimbabweans want. That is my thinking. But they understand what people from outside Zimbabwe want. So like Professor Chan, they give him more value than anyone who has spoken about structures, for example. Professor Moyo was speaking to them about structures and they did nothing. They in fact ostracized him for it. But the moment this one word from Professor Chan, they made a change. Don't you think that is the problem?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm saying to you, I didn't follow the Professor Chan issue. Today I was at church. I'm hearing Ostolas refuting that they did a shadow cabinet and they are explaining, including what is his name, Hopewell. But you see, the problem we have as a country is that the so-called heavy hitters, or like, for example, I'll give you an example. You would have seen other people call me a failed politician. I think somebody came to your show here and called me a failed politician.
Yeah.
You know, when I was talking to Mashumba, because he's my aide that was running around with this thing, and when I told him that it's done, And he was this excited. And I said to him, this is the reason I came to Parliament. I came to Parliament to be the voice for the voiceless. But you hear somebody said, I'm a failed politician. You know what they mean when I say I'm a failed politician? They're simply saying, you don't have the masses following you. I didn't come to politics to be followed by the masses. I came to politics to give effect, the voice of the voiceless. That's what I came to do. Now, if I've achieved that, it's okay. Now, those that came to be demagogues, by the way, you know demagogues, what they end up being? They end up being autocrats. Huh? So if you want me just to be followed by people, it doesn't make sense. We're a country that demonizes Professor Madugu. I mean, how do you sit there and say Professor Madugu is nothing, he doesn't know anything? All these lawyers that you see in this country, they're coming off his hands. They're a product of Professor Madugu. So I'm responding to this whole issue where we go about rubbishing each other on the basis of numbers, but numbers with what content? If we're going to transform society, we're going to transform society through a set of values, through a set of principles, through a culture which we're going to inculcate amongst our people. What is it that we're giving them? I told you some time before that God forbid anything happens to the champion in chief. I think I told you that. God forbid anything happens to him, because remember, he's human. If anything happens to him, what happens of his project? I thought people would have learned lessons from Sabe. Sabe had a good project until at the end when it just became a one-man band. And you see what we have today. The opposition has been decimated. There's no opposition in this country. Don't fool yourself. Do not fool yourself. You won't get more than 80 members of parliament to the opposition next year. Don't fool yourself. It's been decimated. Okay. So I have a problem with that. Now, the West, if they think that there is going to be a new government and they have not done enough work to want to change the material conditions of our people on the ground, it's not going to help. You can't think that there's going to be a new government because people are toying and making noise that now there's been this Pomona deal. What we want to find out is, how did it happen in the first place? Why and how did it happen? You see, if you have no capacity, to deal with that, don't think that people will be moved by jumping around. Let me say another controversial issue that people find controversial. I'm not impressed that when we go to parliament, we get brand new cars, our kids go to private schools, our tummies grow bigger and bigger, our houses are beautiful, but for some reason, we are powerless to confront the ruling elite when it comes to the people that we claim to go and represent them. So we must tell people the truth, that we're going to represent ourselves. Why is it that on our side, we are capable of fighting for good things, but for our people, we are not capable? That is where the issue is. And I'm saying to you, when people look at all of that, they're saying, what is the point? Because even if they are in charge, they are not capable to arrest the malaise that is taking place.
Okay, Senator, I think I want you to answer that question, but let me bring Linda Masarira first. She gave me a call like a few weeks back when this whole issue started, and she's proposing a drastic solution to the CC issue, because she's saying CCC is a destabilizing factor in Zimbabwe. So let's hear what she's saying, and then I'll ask you my next question.
I am in agreement with Professor Jonathan Moyo that political parties in Zimbabwe should be registered, as is the norm in other countries globally. Taking into consideration the recolonization of Africa agenda that is now on full throttle, several destabilization agents are organizing around political parties to get political power to advance their agendas of taking over power in African countries, using African leaders whom they make popular by funding them to advance their foreign policies in African countries. I join in the advocacy of registration of political parties so that we guard against secret societies that are currently operating economic sabotage acts in our country. It is important for every political party to uphold the values of the liberation struggle, respect the Constitution of Zimbabwe in its totality, and to be patriotic to the core. Any political party that is against development and stability in Zimbabwe should therefore be deregistered. We can't continue with a political economy of sustained instability, polarization, toxicity, and excessive antagonism and propaganda. The Cabinet of Zimbabwe, Parliament, and the Ministry of Justice should expedite and pursue this matter of registration of political parties before 2023 elections if sanity and order is to prevail in our political economy in Zimbabwe. I am in agreement with Professor Jonathan Moyo that political parties in Zimbabwe should be registered as a...
All right, Senator, I think you hear where this is going. The CCC, according to Linda, is a problem, and according to Professor Moyo, because it does not have structures. It's a political project of outside forces. And according to one of the tweets that I saw, I think it was from Professor Moyo, they should not even be allowed to contest these elections in 2023 until they have proper structures. Otherwise, they'll be used by these foreign forces to destabilize the country. The same thing that Linda is saying. What do you think?
Well, I'm sorry, Kambakwe. I don't take Linda serious. I'm very, very sorry. And I'm very much willing to contribute to Professor Moyo's thoughts, because I think those are his thoughts. And he can defend them, he can articulate them and everything. Linda can't just have somebody write something for her and then she just reads and reads. I suppose those things are attributed to the CCC. She must justify. She must say the toxicity which she's talking about, the economic sabotage and all those things, what she's talking about. She lost me right there. What is she talking about? What economic sabotage? What is she talking about? I really have no clue of what
I can't speak for her. What she's just saying is that this party is not a party. It's a project to just destabilize the country.
No.
And for sure, it's not a party. There's no political party called CCC right now. There's no deputy president. There's nothing. There's only Chamisa.
Come back. Guys, please. I'm saying, if you are going to make such a huge assertion like that, you must substantiate it. You must substantiate it. You can't say so and so is or this organization is economically sabotaging the country. That's treason, by the way. You are claiming that other people are involved in treason, and you are not even willing to even try and provide some evidence. Now, let me deal with this issue of structures which we are talking about. I'm on record on this platform telling you that CCC has structures. I've told you that I maintain that. They have structures, right? They just, and I told you even then, that they feel that the courts are being used against them. And they think that by operating with those structures but not publicly acknowledging them, it works for them. But unfortunately, it then ends them the secret society term, right? That term may be offensive, they may feel derogatory and all those things, but unfortunately, that's exactly what it is right now, because they have structures which they won't publicly reveal them. But you know, even the champion-in-chief, when he stands up, he does say, thank you to our spokesperson that is talking about Advocate Mahere. They will write about a job, and may God be with him there. It's very unfair what is happening to him. Job is not a flight risk. He is not going to harm anyone. The guy can't even harm a fly. And I don't even know why he's languishing in that prison. It's very, very unfair. But they will talk about the deputy chairperson of CCC. So the structures are there. If you go down to people, they'll tell you that as far as down as wards and polling stations, whatever, they do have structures with position holders and all those things. But to leap from there when you know why they couldn't hear, because they think they are mitigating against what they see as an activism judiciary, and then leap there and saying, no, they are solely created to sabotage the economic activity of this country. No, it's not true. It's not true. It's not true. I have asked many questions in Parliament over the economy. You know that. A lot of questions. They've never, in response, the ministers said there's an organization here that is sabotaging us. They've never said that. What we know, if sabotage has been mentioned, it's sabotage with regards to the cartels. And Triple C is not part of the cartels. So that's the issue that I have. If we're going to have a discussion, let's have a factual discussion which is mature, and do not parrot or expose opportunists. People are taking chances. That's not the politics that we want. We want a fair politics. And let me close by saying this. Triple C not being registered is part of the law in Zimbabwe. I want you to visit His Excellency's speech addressing the Unity Day commemoration in 2019 at his farm, addressing Pollard activists. He said one of the things about Zimbabwe which is different from all other countries is that there is no need for one to register a political party. You can wake up in the morning with your friends and even with your family and go and register to participate in elections. The speech is there. It's on YouTube. I can get you his words verbatim. So that is not the problem. Now, if we are putting a law to now register political parties, it's okay. But it's not going to affect Triple C only, by the way. Because right now in this country, Kambako, I think the only organization that has held elections that is compliant to its constitution, it will only be ZANU Women's League, only. They're the ones who have just held a Congress and they have elected their leaders. The rest tell me when last they had a Congress and elected their leadership. So this thing does not affect Triple C. Some of the parties that are in Poland, by the way, those are briefcase parties. You don't know about them. You've never heard of any Congress for them. So I don't want laws that are designed to target certain people. No, you must not legislate like that. Don't target people.
Okay, Senator, I think let's close with the question. You have obviously given a good account for most of the questions I asked here. So is Professor Moyo wrong to say that Chamisa is a puppet? Because he's given the puppet tag. It's there on the tweet that I showed here. The puppeteer has spoken and the puppet has responded. And I think this must make Chamisa very angry to be called the puppet of the West or the East.
You know what I can't do is to almost try and be the spokesperson or the critic of the professor. The one thing about the professor is he has given a justification for his view, and you expect that from a professor because he says puppeteer directs, puppet implements. Dr. Stephen Chan, told them publicly here on Twitter that the West wants their structures in Parliament and they obliged within 4 days. You see, so he gives you, I think that's the distinction I'm making between him and the previous president that you had mentioned, is that he really he puts a proposition and he supports it. So this is his view. There's pushback that says, no, there's no shadow cabinet. Forget the shadow cabinet issue. But if indeed there was demand that there are people that are supposed to be appointed because the West wants to know them, and it happened, it will be difficult to fault the professor. It will be very, very difficult.
So how do they shake this puppet tag? Because there are so many people advising Chamisa locally. Good advice, but it's not being taken on structures, on policy, on dialogue. But he never responds until it comes from the West. Right now, if the American embassy in Harare tweets something, it's almost certain that it's going to happen. And here, I want to support what I'm saying. If we take on the issue of by-elections, you remember when the by-elections are not being held, there was a tweet by the American embassy on why those by-elections were not being held. You should have seen the flurry of activity that took place in the CCC afterwards. It was not the other way around. It was not the CCC starting, then the American embassy responding. It was the other way around. And Professor Jonathan Moyo raised it at the very same time again, that he only seems to respond when the Western countries respond. He does not take the initiative himself from local pressure, but from that international pressure.
Well, it depends who's that local pressure. Remember, at the memorial of the late Dr. Magaisa, he said he's not going to take advice from the coaches of his detractors. So it's okay for you to take his detractors and conflict them and say local what? No. I ask you again, the issue of structures is not an issue that people on the ground are worried about. It's an issue that's going to affect him, right? The champion-in-chief and this organization. And I'll tell you how it's going to affect him. He will be the first organization to have two messages, a message for the internal organization and a message for the public. He'll be the very first one to win an election with that approach. In an election, my friend, or in politics, you need one messaging, one, publicly there and your organization. So the challenge he has is he's got to tell the public one thing, that this is a new thing, a complete new thing. There is no garbage. We are not part of the MTC. We have nothing to do with the MTC. We're completely new. And then when you go there, they tell you that, hey, we've been here for a long time. You left us, you sold out. You know, how do I sell out on a brand new thing? You see? So that's going to hold him back. The challenge he has really is, I don't think he appreciated this. This is a complete, this is not even a refurbishment. Eh? This is a brand new thing he has to build. The culture is going to be the biggest challenge. The culture. That's why it was important then, which is what the professor is addressing. It's important to have a Congress and have a constitution that speaks to the character, nature, and mission of this thing. Because the majority of the followers, the so-called gatekeepers, they still have this whole thing that this is our thing, Chinu Chetu. This is our thing. We stood up, we stood with this man. When everyone deserted him, was staying here. All of you wait a bit, we'll tell you what to do. That's not what is going to happen. That's not what is going to happen. While least this side, Zan is building a machinery. I'm saying to you right now, you can go to the gatherings of Triple C. Dr. Kupe is still being insulted. Honorable Pepe is still being insulted. Go to ZANU PF's gatherings and see if Senator Tim Voice and Honorable Shebundu are being insulted. No, they are being appreciated. Do you know why? Because the president, who's the leader of their organizations, welcomed them at the State House with his vice president and the chairperson. You see? So
I agree with you on that point.
There is a culture there that you know that if the president does this, because he's the head, he's the only one who's elected in that party, you know that. If he does this, we all follow, you know. And that's what I told you earlier on when I said, unfortunately, in this country, a lot of people may not believe it. That man, when he gives you his word, you can go and check and check that. You can go and catch that check. It will be honored. And that's the major difference. Major difference. Come to Bulawayo here and try and ask ordinary members of the opposition and ask them what they think of their leadership. They think that they are going to be cheated come nomination time. They are aware that some chicker is going to happen. You see, that's a big difference. So if you're a professor, I'm going back to professor. If you're a professor, you are seated there, wherever you are in exile, and you are given all these promises, and there are two people here that you are betting for. You can now see, because he's a professor of politics, you can see how this thing is going to pan out next year. Currently, the US, the West, which is talking about, wields a lot of power. It is not even being conscientized about the plight of the professor. It is not. Right now, it's get this man to win, get this man to win. And then he's asking himself, even if in the likely event that it happens, will I come home? No. And so he has to come back home. And if I could be allowed, really, if I could be allowed to have one request to the president, is just allow the professor to come back home. The promise that no one and no place left behind, it also applies to the professor. That's my only request I can make to His Excellency. Just allow the professor to come back home.
Okay, and home is beautiful and interesting. I've flown to Zimbabwe 5 times. Yeah.
Remember, I'm talking about a man I had a bruising battle with when he was attacking Dr. Kupe on behalf of the then alliance, which is now Triple C. So I'm not talking about my biggest fan here. I came here to your platform to rebut some of the very, very toxic accusations that were leveled towards Dr. Kupe. So that is what I'm saying. I'm simply saying, no place and no one left behind. It also applies to the professor. He just has to be brought back home. We know that there's been a political fallout there in their party, and power had to be secured. Power is secured now. The current leadership of ZANU is dominant. I don't see anyone removing them anytime soon. They're extremely dominant. And there's nothing much that the professor can do. Let there be negotiations, bring him back home, tell him to keep quiet, like I said, give him water and trees, but he just has to come back home. It's painful. It's painful. He's got his family here. He's got his house here. He's got his whatsoever. Let him just come back home.
Right. Senator, I spent the past 3 hours with Dr. Fedias Mteneri. He's here visiting in Johannesburg. And wonderful. As you can see, he's actually much fatter than me now. You can remember, like before, it was the other way around.
Yeah, so I'm coming there. I'm coming there. I think weekend or so. So if he's still around, I'll join you guys.
Yeah, and we had a lot of talk about these issues. And what I said to Dr. Mteneri, and as we close, I actually don't want Chamisa to win. Like, I want Chamisa to lose the 2023 elections because I don't think he's ready to govern. I don't think the country will survive a Chamisa presidency at this point. There will be chaos if Chamisa was to win this election because everything will just be everywhere. There's no order. And you can't have change without order. This is what I said to Dr. Mteneri, but I'm sure you would disagree. But personally, I would prefer a President Mnangagwa presidency while Chamisa learns how to build an organization. That is what I would prefer. And I would agree with Professor Moyo that Chamisa tends to take advice and people around him. If you give advice to the CCC, you are hated. You are called names. You are given to ZANU-PF. And the names that are thrown at you and the insults are terrible, especially for people who have assisted Chamisa to get where he is today at their own personal expense, which I think is what brought us here where we are. So many secret enemies around Chamisa.
You guys are obsessed with personalities. Personal, I can tell you, I really don't have a favorite to win or favorite to lose and whatsoever. I just want the promise which has been reduced into the Constitution to be put into effect. And as I told you before, that if there is a man who is ready for this, God will put that man through. And right now, if it's just as John is just on this slogan, God is in it and blah, 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 it will fail, right? But if people are genuine in their hearts and they are touched by the plight of God's people and they want to do something to it or something about it, God will put them through. He did that with David. His father sent the prophet to all the other brothers except him. And the prophet said, no, man, isn't there anyone And he said, no, there's some small boy there, and whatsoever. And when he got there, the oil just started oozing out. So I mean, no doubt, God is in control of the affairs of men. God is in control of our affairs. We can rob each other, we can cheat each other, we can do all the demagoguery which we want to do. It will not put us there. Because I can tell you, you're not going to remove this government by insulting it or by propaganda or through violence. You are not going to be able to remove them through that. There's only one force that can remove them. It's the divine force. And it will be removing them because you are worthy of heaven to come down and assist you. And so sometimes I feel sorry. I asked one lady after the last parliamentary question, which I did. I was at the hotel. So she looks at me at the hotel in Arad. She says, so you didn't come here for your own. You really came here to fight for us. And I said, but why didn't you believe that? She says, I never believed that. I said, yeah, I know, because you're always insulting me here. Your MPs are back in parliament. What have you received for it? He said nothing. And I said, you see, don't be too personalities driven. You need to be able to look at what is the promise that was given and how are people doing in terms of delivery of that promise or bringing it to effect. So I think most of the Zimbabwean politics, you with the doctor there, we're busy talking personalities. We need to talk about what the constitution says of that country that is promising us all a better life, dignified life, this and that and all those things. But only 2-3% are getting that. And the rest are not getting it. And nobody seems to care. Nobody.
Okay, Senator, it's been very, very interesting talking to you. And everywhere I go, people talk about how much they follow you. I was also telling Dr. Mteneri that when I was in Kariba, guys were saying to me, they really like what you guys do and say. And they don't like the fact that I support ZANU-PF, which I don't. But obviously, ZANU-PF is in power.
What did you say? You don't?
I don't support ZANU-PF, but I've got friends in ZANU-PF. I've got many friends in ZANU-PF.
Then I'm a virgin with 3 kids.
you know what I like about my friends in ZANU-PF? Right now, I can go to a ZANU-PF conference with 1,000 people, and I'll sit there, and no one will bother me. CCC people, if I just walk in town, or if I try to go to their event, they start calling me names and behaving as if I'm a ZANU-PF member.
Yeah, but you are obsessed. But you are obsessed, Kambakwe. Maybe let me come to this. You know, I'm really asking myself why Advocate Mahere doesn't sue you. I asked myself. I sat there and I said to myself, did he just say this? Is he just laughing at this? That was so gross. That was so beneath you. What got into you? What is happening? Why would you do that?
You mean to Mahere?
I mean, honestly speaking, fight with the lady fairly and whatsoever. You have a wife, come back where you have daughters or whatsoever. I don't think you will appreciate anyone doing that. No, my friend, I won't be a friend if I just let you get away with that. That was uncalled for.
When I've got an interview with Jonas, it's a different kind of thing. It's crazy. So don't take anything seriously when I'm,
No, but honestly speaking, I don't know why she's not suing you in particular, because at least she can sue you in South African courts and she will get justice. That is just not right, Kamba. That's not correct.
Whichever way you want sued me, a billionaire sued me and quit. I'm not a pushover. I look like a pushover, but if she was to sue me, she will see what will happen.
Didn't you threaten that that guy of yours has got receipts? What receipts did he bring? What receipts?
No, I'm not talking about receipts. I'll personally find those videos and publish them.
I'm telling you that there are no videos. That's the point that I'm telling you. There are no videos. All just evil men that are scared of a young woman. They can't even confront her political and argue with her political. And all they have to do is to create things and tarnish her image, insult her, and do the worst. Men, they're not even ashamed. Men going after women. They're not even ashamed. One woman. All those
Senator,
men.
Let me say this at the end about Mahere, Ostalos, all these guys. I personally WhatsApp them on my phone here. I've said before, I've got Chamisa's number. I can call him anytime now and say hi, Chams. I never do. But the thing about Mahere is people in CCC, she's got secret enemies in CCC. And there are things I can't tell you now, which when the time comes, I could. But she knows this, what I'm telling you. The problems that she has are not coming from ZANU-PF or anything. They're coming from right inside CCC. And I know a lot, and I don't even have to worry about it.
But why is she supposed then to be insulted by you? Remember, you have told us twice now that she's pregnant, and somehow she never delivers in that pregnant. And instead of then telling us that, no, sorry guys, I made a mistake, we have moved now. She's no longer going out with Chamisa. Now she's going out with so and so. Now guys, when you get time, respect us. Really respect us. Try and have some coherent story. You can't really accuse somebody of something and then all of a sudden all of that is gone. No, we must somehow forget that you once lied to us and we must now believe you. You lied to us about the same woman.
I can show you, I can show you who gave me that story in CCC if I want, but I don't. Senator, I don't just do things. Like when you see me saying something about someone,
so now you are involved. So now you are admitting to be involved in internal malicious propaganda of a political party. So
it's a source. I've got sources. So if a source comes to me, there are people in ZANU-PF that I have said things about from sources. Sometimes the sources are misleading us. But I never wake up and say, today I want to go after Mahere. I don't do that.
Have a good night, come back. Have a good
okay,
night,
Senator.
Goodbye.
Uyo uko kuno apo pano mamuona kere mamuona kere